I spent a lot of time as a child downtown because my mother had a business on Main Street called the Criterion for many, many years. My father's dry cleaners, which had been in that building for a long time, had moved to the corner of Lee and Rawls. And I would go by my daddy's place, and he would give me a handful of quarters, or maybe sometimes a dollar bill. And then I would walk downtown and I would go to my mother's shop and I would walk up and down Main Street, buy comic books, go to the movies. I still had change left over. This was in the early 50s. But the monument was that was the middle of the compass. Everything was measured from the monument. Um, a certain building would be, a block and a half down from the monument. Or Mom would say, now don't get too far from the monument. That just meant don't go all the way to the end of the town. And it's a landmark and a measuring tool. And it just always, I would sometimes just smile with pride that Enterprise had that. That made us the peanut capital of the world, Dothan notwithstanding. We've got the monument. I've always felt a sense of pride in the monument. It's kind of, I mean, it's ours in the sense that it's Enterprises, but it's also a little part my family's. We feel the same way about Ben Pascal, who's also a cousin. He played for the New York Yankees on the same team with Babe Ruth. He was the only man to ever pinch hit for Babe Ruth. Babe called him Pask. I probably heard more stories about Ben than I did about Bon from my daddy, but we were baseball fans. But I do have a sense of that being part of what this town means to me. When I finished graduate school, somebody asked me if I was going to look for work in Birmingham, and I said no, I'm going home because I need to see that monument when I drive down town, when I go somewhere. That's home to me. And even coming home from other places, when I sight the monument, I know I'm home. Bond was enough of a man of progress to live with being unpopular. At one time, there was even a restraining order brought against starting one of his projects because it was not fully covered. There were not enough bonds to cover the cost of it. I believe that was the road paving, and that was delayed for a while. I think he ended up getting the restraining order lifted, and they finished the road paving. But there was an assessment on landowners, and of course they were not happy. And I saw somewhere that city councilmen were. There was a time when city councilmen didn't want to come downtown because people were very unhappy about this assessment for the road paving, and it eventually got done. And I'm sure they were quite pleased with it once it was finished. But he also had to work very hard to get the school built. They got the land purchased, and I believe it was something like 250,000 bricks, and it sat like that for a while, waiting for the next step. And he was always the pusher, the man who did not mind annoying people if he thought they could contribute more than they had or they should contribute and hadn't. But he always set the example by paying as much as he could himself. So I think that's maybe one of the um, personality traits of a true dedicated person of progress. You're willing to be unpopular to get your projects done. The Fleming family, our earliest known ancestor, Robert Alexander Fleming, was born in North Carolina. He was in Georgia during his childhood in Columbia County. He eventually moved to Harris County, which is on the Alabama-Georgia line, and he had a farm there. He married a Watson and had, I think, 9 children. 7 of them came to Coffee County, Alabama in 1853, along with in-laws, children, aunts, uncles, and cousins. It was a wagon train. And a lot of the families that are credited with being the early settlers of Clintonville on the historical monument there in Clintonville, those names, Fleming, Watson, Dismukes, McGee, those all came with the Fleming family from Harris County, Georgia. And they lived in Clintonville through that generation and into the next, and then some of them began to move, as my daddy put it, came to town. They moved to Enterprise. And one of them was Roscoe Owen Fleming, known as Bon. And he had a business on Main Street for, I don't remember the exact year he went into business. I believe it was around 1910, but until the 30s when he moved to Montgomery. So my father knew him, would have known him well. My daddy was born in 1915. So, and his father, Roscoe Conklin Fleming, had a business on Main Street right across from where Bond's business would have been. Bond's business was on the corner where H&R Block is now. And my grandfather Roscoe's business was next to where the radio station is, in the building that's now Star Spangled. So they would have been, I'm sure, close friends, Roscoe and Bon. And those 2 branches of the family share the name Roscoe. But like I said, I remember my daddy talking about Bon being in business, and he would always include that Bon was a man of ideas. And he told me he got the elementary school built. He was responsible for kick-starting the first paving of the roads. He was a city councilman and a county commissioner and a commissioner of public works. And I remember reading somewhere that one of his contemporaries said that one of Enterprise's biggest mistakes was letting Bond go to Montgomery. Of course, he died in Montgomery. But he was truly, when they call Enterprise the city of progress, I think that was Bond's doing. And it's a sense of pride. In that day, a monument was generally a statue. So they ordered a statue, and the statue was of a woman. At that time, there was no Boll Weevil on it. When it was dedicated, the Boll Weevil itself was not at the top of the monument. At the top was a fountain. And in the photo of the dedication, you can see the fountain spraying out of the top. And I don't know who conceived the idea of putting a Boll Weevil, on the top instead of the fountain. But originally it was just a monument in honor of, or actually, as it says, in profound appreciation to the Boll Weevil and what it's done for the economy of Coffee County.